My front door flew open with such force that the hinges groaned in protest. It was a typical Tuesday afternoon, 2 p.m., and I was in my bedroom folding clean laundry when I heard Chris's furious footsteps. Storming through the house. Mom, where are you? His voice echoed with a rage I hadn't heard since he was a teenager. I left the laundry on the bed and went into the hallway. My 42-year-old son was standing in the lounge, his face flushed red, his fists clenched. His green eyes, which he'd inherited from his father, bored into me with a severity that chilled me to the bone. Why did Scarlett phone me in tears saying you've changed the PIN on your card? She was at the supermarket and couldn't pay for her shopping. You humiliated her in front of everyone. I stood frozen in the doorway. 70 years of life had taught me to remain calm in difficult situations, but this was different. This was my own son, shouting at me in my own home. Chris, lower your voice. We're civilized people. My voice was firm, yet quiet. And yes, I changed my PIN. Because it's my card. Your card? Mom, we're family. You can't just put up barriers like this when we need something. He took 2 steps towards me, and for the first time in my life, I felt a knot of fear tighten in my stomach. The card is in my name. Chris, it's my money. Your money? Really? You're going to be that selfish? His words flew at me like projectiles. Scarlett was just buying things for the house, food, cleaning supplies, the usual. I knew that wasn't true. I had seen my statements last week: 150 pounds on makeup, 250 pounds on clothes, pound 400 at a fancy restaurant in downtown Chicago. But I chose not to mention it just then. Chris, darling, if you need money for something specific, we can talk about it like adults. But I am not leaving my card and PIN out there for just anyone to use. Just anyone. You're calling my wife just anyone. His voice rose even higher. She's your daughter-in-law. She's part of this family. I sat down in my favorite armchair. 40 years ago, I'd breastfed Chris in this very chair. My whole body was trembling, but I needed to remain composed. Scarlett is always welcome in this house, Chris, but my credit card is not a family utility. Chris paced the lounge like a caged animal. His shoes thumped against the hardwood floor with every step. He was sweating despite the air conditioning. I can't believe what I'm hearing. You've been generous your whole life, always helping everyone. And now, when your own family needs your support, you're acting like a miser. That word hurt more than any shout. Miser. Me, who had raised this man alone after his father died. Me, who had worked double shifts for years to pay for his university tuition. Me, who gave him the down payment for his first flat. Chris. I will not let you speak to me like that in my own home. Then give me one coherent reason. Why change the PIN overnight without telling anyone? I got up from the armchair. My back protested, but I needed to be on my feet for this conversation, because I reviewed my statements, and I found charges I don't recognize. Significant amounts of money leaving my account without my permission. Those charges were all discussed with you. No. Chris, they were not. It was the first time he'd fallen silent since he arrived. His breathing was heavy, and the veins in his neck stood out. Scarlett told me she always asked you before using the card. Scarlett is lying. The words escaped my mouth before I could stop them. The silence that followed was thick, heavy. Chris looked at me as if I'd slapped him. I won't have you insulting my wife. I'm not insulting her. I'm telling the truth. The truth is, you're becoming paranoid. Maybe it's time for someone else to handle your finances. Those words hit me like a bolt of lightning. My own son was questioning my ability to manage my own money, doubting my mental faculties. I think you should leave, Chris. Asterisk, I'm not going anywhere until we sort this out. Give me the new pin. Now, asterisk, no. I've said no. I held his gaze. This is my house and my decision. Asterisk, if Scarlett needs something, she can ask me directly. Asterisk, Chris walked to the door but stopped before leaving. His voice was colder than ice. This isn't over. When you get over your stubbornness, we'll talk again. Asterisk, it's not stubbornness. Chris, it's a boundary. Asterisk, it's foolishness. And you'll regret it when you see what this does to our relationship. His words hung in the air like a threat. My own son, threatening to sever our relationship if I didn't give him access to my money. Asterisk, are you threatening me? Asterisk, I'm warning you. Scarlett is deeply hurt by this. I don't know if she'll want to see you after this. Asterisk, then that will be her decision. Asterisk, Chris shook his head in disgust. You know what? You're right. It's your decision, and we'll make ours. Asterisk, the door clicked shut. I was alone in the lounge, trembling. I walked to the window and watched Chris's car speed down the road. The tires screeched as he took the corner. Asterisk, this was the fruit of 40 years of motherhood. My only son screaming at me for protecting my own money. The silence in the house was different now, thick and heavy. I sat back down in my armchair and closed my eyes. The conversation replayed in my mind like a broken record. Chris's anger, his tone, all over a pin, over protecting my own credit card. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about the pin. It was about control, about boundaries. And about the fact that for the first time in years, I had said no. Asterisk, the phone rang. It was Scarlett. Her sharp voice cut through the silence of my home. Susan, I know you're there. I hope you're happy with what you've done. Chris is devastated. I just don't understand why you're treating us like this. We're your family. Asterisk, click. The line went dead. Asterisk, the clock on the wall read 3:30 p.m. It felt like a whole week had passed in the last 2 hours. Cooking had always been my sanctuary in difficult times. As I peeled potatoes for a late lunch, I couldn't stop thinking about the expression on Chris's face. The coldness in his eyes suggested he had decided I was no longer worthy of his respect. But that sunny afternoon was only the beginning of the nightmare I had been living for 2 years. Asterisk, my routine was my anchor. Getting up at 6 a.m., making coffee in the machine my husband Richard had given me before he passed, and tending to the plants in my garden. It was an organized, predictable, safe life. After Richard's funeral, when Chris was just 12, I learned that structure was the only thing that kept us sane. Meal times, reading times, bedtimes, clear rules, and firm boundaries. I thought that was how you built a good man. Asterisk, our 2-story house in a quiet suburb of Chicago had been our sanctuary for 40 years. Richard had bought it when I was pregnant with Chris, and we paid off the mortgage in 20 years. Every room held stories. Every corner held memories. The neighbors knew me as the woman who always had time to help. When Mrs. Gable fell ill, I brought her meals for 2 months. When the Rodriguez family's son needed money for a school trip, I lent them £400 without interest. Generosity was my way of honoring Richard's memory. Asterisk, Chris had always been a good boy, bright, respectful, affectionate. When he turned 25 and landed his first job as an accountant, I was bursting with pride. For years, we were the perfect team. He handled my taxes, and I cooked his Sunday roast. Asterisk, when he met Scarlett, everything changed. The first time he introduced me to her, I was in the kitchen making macaroni and cheese. Chris walked in with a smile I hadn't seen since he was a teenager, holding the hand of a slender blonde woman with perfectly manicured nails, and a dress that cost more than my monthly wages. Mom, this is Scarlett, the love of my life. Asterisk, Scarlett smiled at me with perfect white teeth, but her eyes assessed me as if I were an obstacle to be removed. Her handshake was firm but cold. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Harrison. Chris talks about you all the time. Asterisk over dinner." Scarlett praised my cooking, asked about my garden, and showed a polite interest in our family photos. When they left that night, I thought I had gained a wonderful daughter-in-law. The next few visits were just as pleasant. Scarlett would bring flowers, help me with the washing up, and tell funny stories about her job at a high-end boutique downtown. Chris looked happy, and that was all that mattered to me. Asterisk, the wedding was small but elegant. I paid for half of it without them even asking. I just signed the checks and smiled for the photos. Asterisk, for the first few months of their marriage. The Sunday visits continued. The initial requests were innocent enough. "Susan, could you lend us a bit of money? We're a bit tight on the flat expenses this month," Scarlett asked in a sweet, almost shy voice. "Just £150. We'll pay you back on Friday." Asterisk, I gave them the money without a second thought. They were newlyweds. Of course, they would have financial difficulties. Asterisk, Friday came and went, but the money didn't. Instead, another request did. "Mum, can you lend us another £250? Scarlett needs some new clothes for work, and I don't get my bonus until next month." Asterisk first. It was £250, then £400, then more. Always with the same promise, "We'll pay you back soon." After 6 months, what they owed me totaled nearly £4,000. When I brought it up over Sunday lunch, Chris became defensive. "Mum, you know we're good for it. I don't see why you're keeping such a precise tally. We're family." Asterisk, Scarlett intervened with her most charming smile. "Susan, you're right. We've been careless about repayments. Why don't you hold onto my credit card as collateral?" I didn't want their credit card. I wanted my money back. But I agreed because I didn't know how to negotiate with my own family. A week later, Scarlett rang me in a desperate tone. "Susan, it's an emergency. My card's been blocked, and I need to buy medicine for my mother. Can I just borrow yours for today?" Asterisk, that night, I checked my statement online. £120 at the pharmacy, fair enough. But there were other charges, £60 on cosmetics, £150 on clothes, £25 for a fancy lunch. When I confronted Scarlett the next day, she apologized with tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Susan. I was at the mall and saw some incredible sales. I thought it would be okay." Asterisk, she didn't pay me back the next day, or the next week, or the next month. But she kept asking for my card for emergencies. A year later, I had lost track of how much money had disappeared from my account. My savings were dwindling every month. Asterisk, every time I tried to talk about it, Chris made me feel guilty. "Mum, I don't understand why you're being so petty with us. You have enough money, and we're just trying to get ahead." The word petty stung for weeks. Asterisk, the Sunday visits grew tense. I'd cook, they'd eat, but the conversation always seemed to revolve around money. One day, while reviewing my bank statements, I realized something that made my blood run cold. For the last 6 months, I had been spending more than my retirement income. My life savings were evaporating to fund Chris and Scarlett's lavish lifestyle. I didn't sleep that night. Asterisk, the following months were a slow agony of small lies and large losses. Every week brought a new emergency that required my card, and every use of my card turned into a string of unauthorized purchases. Scarlett would say in a worried voice, "Susan, I need your card to get medicine for Chris. He has an infection and needs expensive antibiotics." An hour later, a notification would pop up on my phone for a £300 purchase at a clothes shop. When I confronted her, she always had an explanation. "Oh, I forgot to mention I needed some new underwear too. Mine are really old," and Chris complains. Asterisk, Sunday visits turned into financial review sessions. Scarlett would arrive with a mental list of future expenses. Chris's cousin is getting married next month, and we need new outfits. Chris was an only child. His cousin was a friend. Scarlett continued. I need about £400 for a dress and shoes. I can't show up looking shabby. Her family is very elegant. Asterisk when I tried to refuse. Chris would employ his new tactic, emotional guilt. Mom, you don't understand how important this is for us. We're building a social reputation. My job depends on the connections I make at these events. Asterisk his accounting job at a mid-sized firm in Illinois did not depend on social connections. But I couldn't argue with them without sounding like a miserly old woman. Asterisk one Thursday afternoon. While watering the plants on my porch, I got a call from my bank. Mrs. Harrison, we're calling to confirm an unusual purchase on your credit card transaction for £1. Zero at an electronics shop. I canceled the transaction and asked them to block the card. Scarlett had had my card since Tuesday for headache medicine. Asterisk 20 minutes later, Scarlett rang. Susan, what did you do? My card is blocked, and I'm stood here at the supermarket with a full trolley. Asterisk, that's not your card, Scarlett. It's my card, and I blocked it because of unauthorized purchases. Asterisk, she laughed nervously and explained the £1,000 electronics purchase. It was for a new computer for Chris, and she couldn't wait. Why didn't you consult me before such a large purchase? Asterisk, because we knew you'd say no. You always find an excuse not to help us when we really need something important. Asterisk, I was being made out to be the villain. I told her to go home, but she demanded I bring cash to the supermarket. I let all subsequent calls go to the answering machine. I spread out all the bank statements from the last 6 months on the dining table. The numbers didn't lie. I had £40,000 in savings in January. By June, £18,000 had vanished. Asterisk, Chris and Scarlett let themselves into the house without knocking, as if they owned the place. I explained I blocked the card due to unauthorized purchases. Scarlett insisted every purchase had been discussed. I haven't forgotten anything, Scarlett. A £1,000 computer is not something you buy without consulting me. Asterisk, Chris intervened. Circumstances change. They were having an incredible sale. I called it a luxury, not an emergency. Scarlett stood up dramatically. I knew you'd react like this. You always make us feel bad for asking for help. Asterisk, my money is my money, Scarlett. I worked for 40 years for it. Asterisk, family money is for everyone. Asterisk, my money is my money. I repeated. Asterisk, Chris said they needed my support for their professional advancement. I've supported you for 2 years, Chris. I've spent over £20,000 on you. Scarlett denied it. But I showed them the statements. Chris insisted they deserved a chance to be trusted. Asterisk, I told them to leave for the day. I needed time. Before he left, Chris paused. We hope you'll reconsider your position. Asterisk, the house was eerily silent for the next 3 days. On Friday morning, I decided to face the full reality. I opened my bank account online. Over £20,000 was gone. I printed 24 months of statements. The papers were a diary of a life I hadn't lived. £400 at a jewelry shop in March. £600 on women's clothing in April. £250 at a spa in May. £800 on electronics in June. I requested a full report, and the bank warned me that someone else might have access to my card. Asterisk, I found a photocopy of my credit card in my lockbox, including the security code on the back. In the corner was a handwritten note from Scarlett. See for emergencies. The phone rang. It was Scarlett. She wanted the security number for my card to buy something online. Where is my card, Scarlett? She claimed I had given it to her permanently for emergencies. I demanded it back. She said she'd come over to talk. Asterisk, Scarlett arrived alone and sat on the sofa. She placed the card on the coffee table. She walked around my lounge as if it were her own. Chris and I love you very much, but lately it feels like you see us as the enemy. I told her I was just protecting my money. Asterisk, she put on a hurt expression. She hinted that it was normal for women who reach a certain age to become overly cautious with money. A certain age. She used the same word Chris had, paranoid. She said, "You're becoming paranoid, thinking your family is stealing from you." Asterisk, I stood up. I put the card in my pocket. She warned me this would make things complicated for everyone. She hoped I wouldn't regret it. After seeing you as a mother for 2 years, it hurts that you're treating me like a stranger, she said, tears welling in her eyes. I replied, I see you as my son's wife, but as for family, my money is my own. Asterisk, on Monday morning, the full report arrived from the bank, 5 pages detailing how £20,000 had vanished in 2 years. I saw transactions made while I was asleep and cash withdrawals from an ATM at 3 a.m. I rang Chris. He admitted the 3 a.m. withdrawal was for an emergency taxi. I pointed out there had been 6 such withdrawals of £250 each in the last 3 months. He became defensive and said they were coming over for a serious discussion. Asterisk, I also saw transactions at 2 different places, a restaurant and a clothes shop, at the exact same time. It meant they had made a copy of my card. They used their emergency key to enter the house. I showed them the concurrent transactions. Asterisk, Scarlett explained it was a surprise gift, so they had used both cards at the same time. I showed her the photocopy. Scarlett said it was just to have the numbers in case the card was lost in an emergency. Did you make more copies? No, of course not. Asterisk, Chris started shouting, calling my questions accusations of fraud and theft. Scarlett said, I was becoming paranoid and needed professional help. Chris called the £20,000 a favor. Scarlett tore up the photocopy. Chris offered a last chance. Give them access to the card for 1 more month. Asterisk, I asked for time to think. Chris said if I took my time, they would take their distance. Scarlett threatened, money is worthless without family. Asterisk, for a week. There was silence. I found the pearl necklace Richard had given me. For the strongest woman I know, so you never forget your worth, he had said. I went to see Mr. Peterson, my neighbor, who told me, a mother's instinct is never wrong. Asterisk, Chris rang and offered a fixed monthly allowance of £1,200. I said £1,200 a month, £14,400 a year was too much. He gave the excuse of maintaining social standards. I told them they should live within their means. He started arguing again. I refused to give him the £1,200. He hung up, mentioning other options. Asterisk, on Monday morning, a solicitor, a Mr. Hoffman, arrived. Chris had hired him to review my mental and financial competence. He was considering legal proceedings to gain guardianship over my finances. Asterisk, I called my neighbor, Helen Dawson. Helen confirmed I was being exploited and advised me to fight back. She recommended the best solicitor for family financial exploitation, Vincent Price. Asterisk, the next day, Vincent Price confirmed this was a case of family financial exploitation, a crime. His fee was £2,500. Vincent discovered they had used my personal details to open 3 fraudulent credit accounts in my name, accumulating an additional £12,000 in debt. We filed a fraud report and a criminal complaint.
A panicked Chris rang, begging me to withdraw the complaint. I asked him about the £20,000 and the £12,000 debt in my name. He said they were for real emergencies. When I refused to withdraw the complaint, his voice turned to ice. Then it swore. He threatened to proceed with the guardianship case, citing my deteriorating mental state. The harassment began. Neighbors started spreading rumors about me. My car was spray painted with Mad Miser. Helen started staying with me. At 3 a.m., Scarlett rang, threatening to spread rumors about Richard's illegal business dealings and dirty money. The court hearing was set for a Tuesday in March. Vincent presented all the evidence: the £20,000 in unauthorized purchases, the 3 fraudulent credit cards, and the forged photocopy. Chris's solicitor argued mental confusion. Vincent showed CCTV footage of Scarlett using the card and testimony from my doctor confirming my mental competence was perfectly normal. The judge dismissed the guardianship case entirely. He ordered Chris and Scarlett to repay the £20,000 immediately, plus interest and legal fees. He also ordered the 3 fraudulent accounts to be canceled and issued a 1-year restraining order to prevent them from harassing me. I had won the legal battle, but I'd lost my son. 6 months later, the court-ordered payments were arriving regularly. Vincent's visits turned from professional to personal. He told me he was in love with me. I was overjoyed. 6 months later, we were married in a small, intimate ceremony. Vincent moved into my house. He now worked pro bono, helping elderly victims of family financial exploitation. 6 months after our wedding, Chris rang me. He told me Scarlett had left him. He apologized. I told him, "I've forgiven you, love, but forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, and it certainly doesn't mean going back to how things were. I don't wait anymore. I have a full life now with Vincent. At 72, I learned that it's never too late to defend your self-worth. I had lost money and my son, but I had gained freedom, self-respect, and a true love in an unexpected chapter of my life."